There's a moment most men have experienced at least once. You are talking to someone. The conversation flows. She laughs at the right moments. She stays longer than she needed to. And then somehow nothing happens. You walk away confused, maybe even replaying it for days afterward, wondering what you missed, what went wrong, whether you said something off, whether she was ever actually interested at all. Here is what nobody ever told you about that moment. Nothing went wrong in the conversation. Something went wrong long before it, in the way you understood the entire situation. Most men are operating with a completely broken map, not because they are unintelligent, not because they lack confidence or looks or money, but because the information they were given about attraction, about women, about what actually drives genuine desire was wrong from the beginning, built on assumptions, passed down through locker rooms and movies and advice from men who were just as confused. And the tragedy is not just that it does not work. The tragedy is that it creates a cycle. You try something, it fails. You adjust your approach slightly, it fails again. And eventually you either give up entirely or you double down on the wrong map, because you cannot imagine that the map itself is the problem. But there is a group of men, a small one, who found a different map, not through manipulation, not through treating attraction like a game with cheat codes, but through actually understanding the psychology underneath it all. The real principles that govern how attraction forms, deepens, and lasts. Today we are going into that territory, not surface level, not the recycled advice you have heard 100 times. We are going into the actual psychological framework that separates the men who consistently build deep, genuine connections with women from the men who spend years wondering why it never quite comes together. Let us start with something that sounds almost too simple to be profound, but carries more weight than most people realize. Women pay attention to how a man treats moments that do not matter. Think about that carefully. The conversation you are having with her, she is partly watching it, but she is also watching the 30 seconds before it. How you spoke to the waiter, whether you acknowledged the person holding the door, how you handled a small inconvenience that most people would have let visibly irritate them. These are not tests she designed. They are observations her subconscious makes automatically because they reveal something that rehearsed conversation cannot. Character under no pressure. The version of you that exists when there is nothing to gain from performing. A man who is genuinely kind in invisible moments, not for audience, but out of actual orientation toward people, communicates something that no amount of charm in direct conversation can manufacture. She may not be able to articulate exactly why she trusts him. She just does. And that trust is the soil that everything else grows in. Now, here is something that most dating advice gets completely backwards. Mystery is not about withholding information. It is not about being intentionally vague or evasive or pretending you have less interest than you do. Real mystery comes from depth, from being a person whose interior world is genuinely rich enough that one conversation cannot exhaust it. The man who shares everything immediately, who front-loads every interesting story and opinion and experience in the first hour, leaves nothing for curiosity to work on. The man who is fully present but clearly has layers, whose answers suggest there is more underneath, who references a passion or a perspective and then lets it breathe rather than over-explaining it, creates a pull that she carries with her after the conversation ends. She finds herself thinking about something he said, wondering about the rest of it. That wondering is the beginning of genuine interest. You cannot manufacture it. You can only cultivate it by being someone whose depth is real. Let us talk about something that is uncomfortable for a lot of men to confront. The way you feel about yourself in an interaction is not invisible to the person across from you. It communicates constantly, and she reads it faster than she reads your words. Anxiety has a texture. It shows up in the micro patterns of how you speak, where your eyes go when silence appears, whether you rush to fill every gap in conversation, how your body orients itself toward her as if seeking confirmation that you are welcome there. None of this is conscious on her end, but her nervous system registers it the way yours would register walking into a room and sensing that something is off without knowing why. This is not about performing confidence you do not feel. That performance is just a different kind of anxiety wearing a costume, and she can sense that too. This is about something more fundamental, building an actual relationship with yourself that does not require external validation to stay stable. The man who genuinely enjoys his own company, who has a relationship with his life that he finds meaningful, independent of romantic outcomes, carries a quality of presence that is genuinely rare. And genuine rarity creates genuine interest. Here is one that directly connects to how attraction actually deepens over time rather than just sparks in an initial moment. Women are drawn to men who can hold space for difficulty without collapsing or escalating it. Life produces hard moments, disagreements, disappointments, moments where the emotional temperature of an interaction rises and most people either shut down or push back hard. The man who can remain regulated, who can stay curious and warm when things get uncomfortable, who does not require everything to be easy in order to stay present, demonstrates something that her subconscious marks as profoundly important. It is not about never having a reaction. It is about not being controlled by your reaction in ways that make the environment around you feel unsafe. A woman who experiences this quality in a man stops bracing herself. She stops monitoring the emotional weather forecast before she speaks. And when a woman stops bracing, she opens. That opening is where genuine intimacy begins. Now let us go into something that operates completely below the level of conscious thought: timing and rhythm in conversation. There is a particular quality to the way a man speaks when he is not afraid of his own words. He does not rush to the end of his sentences as if apologizing for taking up space. He does not speak faster when tension appears. He lets his thoughts arrive fully rather than pushing them out before they are complete. Women are extraordinarily attuned to this rhythm because it communicates something in the oldest part of the brain. This person is not threatened by this moment. This person does not need this to go a particular way in order to feel okay. That signal, delivered through nothing more than the pacing of speech and the comfort with silence, creates a disproportionate sense of safety and attraction. You can change the entire quality of an interaction simply by deciding that your words are worth the space they take. Let us talk about how connection actually accelerates, not through more talking, through better listening, and specifically through a quality of listening that most people never experience in their daily life. The majority of people listen to respond. They are processing what you said while simultaneously constructing what they are about to say. The result is that you feel heard on the surface but not actually received. The man who genuinely listens to understand, who lets her finish not just the sentence but the thought, who asks a follow-up question that proves he was tracking the meaning underneath the words, creates an experience that is disorienting in the best possible way. She will not necessarily be able to explain why the conversation felt different. She will just know that she said something and he actually caught it. That he was curious about the part she almost did not say, that she walked away feeling more understood than she expected. That feeling is addictive. Not because she is seeking something to be addicted to, but because genuine understanding is rare enough that encountering it creates an almost involuntary pull toward its source. Here is something that most men either ignore entirely or overcorrect on in ways that backfire: the role of lightness, of humor, of not treating every interaction like a high-stakes negotiation for approval. Attraction lives in moments of ease, in shared laughter over something absurd, in the ability to be slightly ridiculous without losing your groundedness. The man who is always serious, always deliberate, always calibrating for maximum effect creates a kind of gravity that exhausts the people around him. The man who can be genuinely light, who can make something funny without trying too hard, who can laugh at himself without losing his dignity, creates an atmosphere that people want to stay inside. This is not about performing humor. It is about actually allowing yourself to find life amusing, about not gripping the interaction so hard that all the air leaves it. Let things be funny when they are. Let moments breathe. Stop managing everything and let something real happen. Now, here is something that ties the whole framework together in a way that most advice never reaches. The men who understand attraction most deeply are not thinking about attraction when they are in an interaction. They are thinking about the person in front of them. They are genuinely curious, genuinely present, genuinely interested in who this person is rather than in whether this person finds them impressive. That shift from performing to connecting, from seeking approval to offering genuine attention, changes everything about the dynamic. Because what most people are desperately hungry for is the experience of being actually seen, of mattering to someone in the room, not as an audience, but as a person. When you can offer that, when your attention is real rather than strategic, you stop being someone she is evaluating and become someone she is drawn toward in a way she cannot fully explain. And that is perhaps the most important truth in all of this. The qualities that create real, lasting attraction are not techniques you apply to someone. They are the natural expression of a man who has done the internal work, who has built a life he finds meaningful, who has a stable relationship with his own identity that does not shift depending on how a conversation goes, who treats people with genuine care, not because it is effective, but because that is actually who he is. The map most men were given told them to focus outward, to find the right words, the right timing, the right move. The better map points inward first. Build something real inside, carry it into the room with you, and let it do what authenticity has always done. Attract what is genuinely meant to be there. That is not the beginning of a strategy. That is the beginning of a completely different life.